next up, I'd like to introduce Brad Johnson to the stage. Brad is our SME over the storeroom and utilities side of things, and he's going to show us some of the new enhancements that were introduced with Cityworks 15.1 for storeroom, and those that are coming forward with 15.2. And I just want to say, with the release of storeroom in 2015, the goal was really to take that storeroom desktop functionality and provide it to our clients in a web interface through server. But with 15.1, we had the chance to take some time and really start looking at enhancing some of those workflows that were provided in the server environment and enhancing that ease of use for both our end users and our administrators. And so with that, I'm going to turn over to Brad so he can show you what's been done there.
Thanks, Becky. It is really great to be able to show you some of the enhancements that we have put into storeroom in 15.1 and take a few minutes to show you some of them that we're working on for 15.2. I'm going to go over to my storeroom, and I think one of the most significant changes that we have made is the migration of the configuration tools from designer to storeroom. So a storeroom administrator no longer has to be a designer administrator to administer materials, suppliers, and so forth. I can simply select my configuration button up here, go to material, and now I can add new material, I can edit existing material, and as you can see, it's still in storeroom. It didn't go to designer. I can manage my material through making changes to it and so forth. The same is true of my suppliers. I can do the same functions here. I can adjust my screen size. I can search for a supplier, select them, and then add new material to their list, and make adjustments to that material as well. In storeroom material, not only can we add new storerooms, edit our material that's within a storeroom, we can make our changes to the audit dates, the audit time frames, as well as our bin locations. And as many of you know, in the past, if you wanted to find material in this screen, you had to scroll through all of your material. We've enhanced this now where we have a search function to quickly find material, either by the material ID or by its description. You can find something. So some significant changes that will make it a lot easier to administer and to work with storeroom. Some of you may have noticed when I signed in, I was signed in to my truck. Storeroom lists the storerooms in its drop-down menu alphanumerically. And in the past, it always defaulted to the very first storeroom. So if you were in the last storeroom, or maybe the 40th or 50th truck in the fleet, you had to scroll through everything to get to it. Now it remembers, based on your ID, when you log out, which storeroom you were in, and it'll always bring you back to that storeroom. I know that, yeah, I know, that one drives me crazy. But we fixed that, and you really enjoy it now. Our search functions have been improved. In the past, when you searched for something, and you wanted to look at the results, and you wanted to change the visible fields, you had to delete the fields and then re-add them if they weren't in the sequence that you wanted them. Now when you add in the fields that you're looking for, all you have to do now is drag and drop the sequence in which you want them. And when you do your search or when you export it to Excel, it'll be in that order. So that'll be a nice time saver in the searches. In our receiving function, we've made some changes that are really great. In the past, when you received an item, the unit cost always defaulted to $1. And consequently, sometimes items got received at that $1 and didn't get changed to what the actual cost was. Now when you select an item, the unit cost defaults to the current cost, the weighted cost, or your current FIFO or LIFO cost. Some other changes that we have made are the XML. In the past, you've always been able to change, like you could change storeroom, or you could change receive, or any of the labels in here. But you couldn't do anything beyond that. We've opened that up now to where you can make any XML changes in storeroom that you could do in Cityworks. So I know many of you require an account, for example, when making a transaction, either issuing or receiving. You can now make that account a required field. It'll highlight in pink, just like the actual finish date in a work order. so somebody can see that that's a required field. A couple of the upcoming enhancements in 15.2, you can see here, we actually show now the bin number and the location of the item in the description field. Another change we've got coming, and again, these are only a few of them. If you're doing a requisition and requisitioning an item, when you select that item and put in today's date, you can see it'll automatically populate the expected date based upon the lead time set up for the supplier. And that is a great way to be able to track that. Of course, you can change that and so forth. Another enhancement that we have made is in our adding a supplier. If you had somebody that had to get a part or something in the field and they got it from a supplier that wasn't the normal supplier, you had to get out of the transaction, go to designer, go to supplier, add the material to the supplier. Now you can simply click on add supplier and perform these functions both in receiving and in the requisition process. Storeroom has come a long way and we've made some great enhancements to it. I really appreciate everybody's feedback on this. When I've talked to you and you've given me your feedback, or at cityworks.com, we appreciate those suggestions. And many of these things that you have seen have come from you. One last thing I'd like to tell you about is everybody asks about barcoding solutions. And while I don't have time right now, but we have a number of barcoding solutions that I'm anxious to show you. So find me in the next day or two, either in any of my breakout sessions or in the Solution Center, and I'd be happy to show those to you.
As Brad mentioned, a lot of that functionality that you're seeing that's coming through as new enhancements in Storeroom, those are coming directly from our clients. Those are feedback that we're getting through the user forums, from ideas on mycityworks.com, and just from demonstrations and interaction that Brad himself has had with our client base. And so I've actually asked Brad to stick around and show the XML language tool editor. This is a new tool, as I mentioned, that we've developed that will be released with 15.2. And the intent was really to help support our international business partners with their localization and customization efforts related to Cityworks. And so with that, to show what we've done so far, I'd like to turn it back over to Brad.
All right. Hur mår ni idag? Jag vill visa för dig nu ett nytt program som heter Cityworks språkredaktor. Now, some of you think you're sitting through an episode of The Muppets, and you're watching the Swedish Chef. You're actually not too far from the truth. I'm using my second language, which is Swedish, which I don't get to use very often, to introduce the language and XML editor. And this is really a great tool. The way this works is I can start the tool, I can load in the database that I work with, load it in, and then I can create a new file, or I can edit an existing file. And in this case, I'm going to show an existing file that I'm using. And as you can see on the left-hand side, we have the original of almost everything that's in Cityworks. Symbols, phrases, words, and so forth.
And actually, if I can just point out, Brad, I think when I was talking to Sheldon when he first started looking at this, I was myself blown away by it. I've talked to Bjorn several times about the effort that they put into localizing Cityworks in Sweden. But I think he said there were 14,000 strings or something equivalent to that were identified and pulled out into this resource file that's going to be used for the editing process. So just the sheer volume in terms of having to go through and previously manage all those fields and now having them available through this tool to access and update easily is a huge time savings.
Yeah, you can see how small the scroll bar is over here. So there's a significant amount in there. So on the right-hand side is the translation. So it's a mirror image of the left-hand side, but I can now edit these and change these to whatever I would like them to say. We have a filter, so I can look up something quickly and be able to pull it up. So any phrase with the work order term in it will now display on the left-hand side, and I can make the changes. I'm going to click on my translated radio over here and show some of the translations that I've already made. And wherever there's a plus sign, a drop-down menu will come, and anywhere that it's displayed in Cityworks, you can make those adjustments, or on the right-hand side, you can apply it to all. Then you save this file. I go into Cityworks, and if I show you a work order, here's a typical work order. with work order, location information, custom fields, and so forth. If I go into my designer and go into preferences and go to my region setting, when I save that file in the translation program, I now have a box that appears here in region settings, and I can select that multilingual file and load it. The beautiful thing about this is, now, especially for our international clients that have to translate the software, when a new release comes out, all you have to do is apply that file, and boom, you're there. So when I now refresh my screen, you'll see that all of my titles and everything have been translated into Swedish. If I go back to my work order, you can see at the top where it said work order, now it says Arbetsorder. Under location information, Information de lieu, pardon my French. And while I don't do a very good job at translating Arabic, Cityworks does. And it will translate that for you and put it into your software. My drop-down menu, of course, all of my equipment, labor, material, this has all been translated, all very quickly and simply by using the language XML tool. Tack så mycket and ha det så bra idag. Thanks, Becky.
Thank you, Brad.